trial
Age.
run.
I'm not seeing us live.
Are you
Weird.
seeing
I think it
comments?
says we're live now. Are we live? Do people see us?
Really, do people
So
see me? I'm the important one
There
right
we
now.
go.
is
Now
it
we're
live
live.
now? All right.
Okay.
Well, that was a quick little. We just started a couple minutes ago, and apparently that was all just practice. So let's try that again. Hey guys, how's it going? I'm Ricky with Vinci. Thank you so much for joining us. You know, we all get to do a really fun thing for a living. Let's make YouTube videos, and we get to cover a lot of cool stories. And I thought, what if we do a little year-end review? We talk about all of our favorite stories this year, whether it's electric vehicles, energy, technology, all the stuff that's kind of happening on the horizon. And let's chat a little bit. So you guys already saw them. I'm joined by two of my very good friends, Matt Ferrell from Undecided and Alex Vinci from ticker symbol U. And I guess we can we can go over again. I kind of know, spoiler alert, I know how their holidays went. But why don't we start with how are you guys doing?
Go ahead, Alex.
I'm doing good. Like I was just telling these guys, we hosted this year, so we made way too many cookies. So I've been eating nothing but cookies for the last like 7 days. So if I'm a little hyper on this episode, that's exactly why. I've been eating nothing but sugar cookies.
Yeah, it's the same thing for me. We had a huge influx of gourmet cookies that I've been just eating multiple of each day. I am wired on sugar right now.
Yeah, I think we've all probably overeaten. So if you guys celebrate Christmas or whatever it might be, happy holidays to all of you guys. We only have a couple days left in 2022, which is crazy. So I had mentioned really quickly, right before I left for the holiday, I made a video about my Tesla Model 3 years later. That was our last video that we made. 60,000 miles in 3 years, which is kind of crazy. And so I kind of did the math on how much charging and everything else cost me. But that drive to Northern California, I live in San Diego, is one of those situations where every time I do it, I think I love the Tesla. The charging experience is is a seamless one. And I think there's going to be some Tesla topics for sure with all the kind of stuff that they've done. Tesla Semi comes to mind. That's something I've been thinking about lately. I'd love you guys to take on that. But yeah, let's kind of get started. And let's start by looking back at 2022 and seeing what was our favorite stories, maybe surprises, things that we didn't see coming, or just generally thought was cool in the world of technology, energy, everything else. Alex, why don't we start with you? What was your favorite story of the year?
Yeah, so I spent a lot of time thinking and talking about artificial intelligence. That's sort of my academic background and what I did before YouTube. And the thing that really shocked me the most this year was like two things in parallel. One was Stable Diffusion and the other is Chat GPT-3. And basically what we're starting to see this year is that AI is doing exactly the opposite of what everybody predicted for years and years now, which is we all thought that AI would automate sort of the manually intensive jobs, right? Like taking things from spreadsheets and copying and pasting them, data entry, all that kind of stuff. And what we're seeing now is AI is actually taking on some of the most creative tasks in the world. Generative art, generative text, right? So you can ask GPT-3 to write you an essay and it will do it in a provocative language if you ask it to. So some of the things that I've been doing behind the scenes on my YouTube channel is seeing how much script writing I can have Chat GPT do for me, and using the voices of different authors, famous newscasters and things like that, and trying to get GPT to emulate those. And same thing with Stable Diffusion. Can we get AI to generate our thumbnails, to generate our profile pictures and banners? So I think a lot of the surprise and the excitement for this year, looking back for me, comes from AI taking on these really creative challenges.
That's interesting. What about you, Matt? Let's talk about that really quick. So
Sure.
We've been playing with some of the AI art generation stuff. It is wild. I think it opens a whole new can of worms for some of the, like you put Salvador Dali. I saw someone do this. It was like Salvador Dali and a steampunk owl, and it makes this art. But there's like questions of like copyrights and stuff. I don't know. But you're right. We've always thought of AI as, mop my floors and pick up my laundry, and here we are talking about thumbnail generation. It's pretty wild. I didn't see that coming either.
Yeah, to me, 2022 felt like AI coming into its own. It's like we're watching a toddler learn how to walk. It's not quite there, but we're getting our first real glimpse into what it's going to be, and it's been interesting to see that like the OpenAI stuff come out, like that GBT stuff, it's in an uncanny valley right now when you look at it, but you can totally see where it's going. And it also reminded me of AI is coming for all of our jobs. It's going to take
Yeah,
everybody's jobs
totally.
away. I made a career at doing graphic design a long time ago, and it's like watching this stuff come out. It's like, oh, now I can just tell a robot, hey, make me something that looks like this based on this style, and it spits it out. And it's like, oh, son of a, like, think of all the artists out there that are going, no.
I think so. Just on that note, I think what'll happen is it'll take a lot of, sort of the lower level jobs, like the straight up creation jobs, logo design and stuff like that. But I think just like everything else that came before it, what we're going to find is there are going to be AI tools that enable creators to do their jobs better, faster,
Yes.
stronger. So don't think about it like as taking your jobs. Think about it as more like now 2-Bit, Vinci, and Undecided with Matt Ferrell can come out with 3 videos a week because some of the heavy lifting is done automatically by a robot 24/7 and not by creatives like as part of a like human driven production studio,
Yeah, exactly. It's like in Photoshop, you like how you can now select an object. You just draw a box around the thing you want, and it selects it and cuts it out. It's like, and that used to be a very
Unbelievable.
manual thing, and now the machine knows what you're trying to do and just helps you do it. So I agree
Yeah.
completely. It's more of a tool to use for like getting your juices flowing, your creative juices flowing to help you down the path.
If you had told me that we would see demos and other kind of showcases of the technology, that'd be one thing. But we're seeing like products. We're seeing companies selling AI, script writing and like graphic design kind of tools. I saw one where you can take an old timey picture and it'll kind of animate it. It'll make it kind of bring it to life. And it obviously there's going to be bugs and there's limitations to it, but it's freaking incredible. So yeah, I think it's going to be a huge market segment that I know I didn't see coming. That's for sure. So Matt, how about you?
Well, for me, this year was kind of like the energy storage and batteries. It felt like there was a new battery breakthrough being announced every single week, and it was for me the one that kind of like is like the poster child for me was the Drexel University announcement, this accidental lithium sulfur battery discovery that they made. They found a way that they were trying to do one thing and it ended up doing something completely different that they weren't expecting. And it ended up solving a major issue with lithium sulfur batteries. So it's like they found a solution to make lithium sulfur batteries work. And there's a huge upside to this that could really benefit energy storage. And I thought that was to me an example of what we're seeing in the energy storage space. All these little breakthroughs that are happening, they're solving problems with previous technologies that we thought weren't solvable, and we're seeing them get solved. And so for me, that one story just kind of epitomized what I thought of 2022 when it comes to batteries. It doesn't mean that technology is going to be the winning technology of all the batteries. It's just we're starting to see a lot of movement in the energy storage space over this past year. And so for me, that was the one that kind of stood out.
I think it's a
What do
really,
you
really
think the
good point.
implications are? Oh, go ahead. Sorry about
Go
that.
ahead. No, go for it.
What do you think the implications of that kind of breakthrough are? Like, what does that really mean in terms of actual consumer battery technology?
Well, it's one of those, it's not next year. It's not 2023. It's not 2024, but like go forward 5 years, 10 years. And it's like, this is the stuff that we're going to see making a huge difference. Batteries that charge in minutes, they can last for years, have higher cycle life. It's like, that's the stuff we're going to be seeing in
Huge.
the next 5 to 10 years. And it makes me super excited for the potential of battery storage and all the varying technologies and mixtures, meaning you don't have to rely on lithium or you don't have to rely on nickel or manganese. It's like all these different technologies to fit different ecosystems and supply chains. And so it's like we're not totally reliant on one supply chain, or China holds all the lithium. Well, we don't have to worry about that. It's like there's all these different technologies that are coming into play that are going to fill different needs in different markets. It's really exciting.
That is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, as we move from an age where EVs or home batteries were kind of a niche thing and they become bigger and bigger, more mass market. Yeah, you have to think about the supply chains. I think Matt hit it on the head. If we rely so solely on a few things, that's a house of cards that is so easy to tumble. Like entire companies like Tesla or people that are building a lot of EVs could quickly hit roadblocks and have to stop production, all because of like one element. So anything we can do, and to Matt's point, we've covered so many things battery related, and there's a lot of overlap between a little bit of all of us, but Matt and I especially, and some people always like, oh, you're stealing Matt's ideas, or somebody recently said, but it's like, well, first of all, there's science, so we cover the science, like whatever comes out,
Yeah.
and there is just a lot of like academia and a lot of research and development going on. Carbon dioxide batteries is one I recently covered, and it's interesting why you choose the big notorious CO2 as a source of energy storage. But yeah, I think this is we talked about this, I think, even in previous live streams, Matt. But it's kind of like the year of, or the decade of the battery energy storage, and it's definitely in full swing. So I had a chance to go to Japan and meet with a Japanese company called NTT. They were working on this space-based solar system, which is interesting for a couple of reasons. I was thinking, okay, there might be some benefits, but what are they mainly? And one of them is nearly 24-hour-a-day solar generation. So, because of the Earth's orbit, you could, for about 10 or 11 months out of the year, produce electricity 24 hours a day. Now, why is that important? We talked about it before. You don't even need batteries. If you could just produce the energy in real time, that lowers the burden. Because otherwise, every new solar panel or wind turbine you build, you're selling a future where you need to also build a battery. Otherwise, you'll have a huge spike at some point and a shortage of energy at other times. But one of the really cool things they're working on is environmentally friendly sensors, and this ties into what Alex, you mentioned about GTC, the Earth 2, like building a digital twin of Earth, and this era where we could collect data at such incredibly large volumes that was never possible before. And so NTT was working on this Earth-friendly sensor, meaning all the materials that are in these, thermocouples or, batteries, sensors, CPUs, chips, all the various things we would need to collect data from millions of temperature sensors readings around the Amazon, for example, or the oceans, that after its service life, it would just decompose and just be normal nutrients that would be totally okay in the ground, which is not the case today. Like if we used the CPUs and batteries that we use today, couldn't make that claim. So it kind of, to me, was the second part of that ingredient of an Earth 2, like a digital twin of Earth, where we can feed so much data and get all this cool weather prediction and stuff. But it requires also the sensors and the data in enough places around the world to make that data happy with enough input, ingestion.
Yeah, I'm definitely really excited to see all the different use cases for something like a digital twin of Earth, all the way from like localized infrastructure planning, right? Like just looking at which bridges and roads need updating, and things like that, to like more global phenomena, like being able to track the weather everywhere in the world at once and understand like the whole picture, because you have all these different models running in parallel about data as you get it in from all different parts of the world. I think that just like ChatGPT and just like Stable Diffusion, we're going to find all these really cool emergent use cases for having a shared, contributable digital twin of the world that'll enable a whole bunch of new businesses that we can't predict today, like a whole different level of logistics planning, a whole different level of emergency response and relief. I think the future is going to be very cool when individuals and small businesses can start tapping into a digital twin of the world.
Yeah, that's really interesting. We talked about how AI can transform all sorts of industries and stuff. That could as well. I mean, there's probably a whole slew of like smart grid connected devices or like water management systems and things that could benefit from that. We've probably chatted about this in our own videos over the years, but it's interesting.
I was going to bring that up, of even down to the micro scale to us in our homes. It's like the AI and the machine learning that's going to be available to us in our smart connected homes, taking advantage of like how the grid is handled, the solar panels on my house, how my HVAC runs, helping to alleviate those big peak demands on the grid. It's like all of these things can like play into like not only grid scale and large scale, it can apply directly down to our homes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Cars, homes. Yeah, there's a wildly interesting future. So why don't let's take a look forward into 2023 and talk about, let's start with this one. And Alex, I'm not sure if you made a video about this, but I haven't on my channel, and I know Matt hasn't. The Tesla Semi is something I've been thinking about lately because it has a disruptive property. Here's some really fun facts, by the way. I think it's around 72% of the freight in the U.S. by weight is transported on trucks, semis. And it accounts for a massive amount of the employment, about 3.5 million drivers. And I mean, like 50 billion miles driven a year. It's just a massive industry. And clearly there's need to electrify potentially or to go low carbon or whatever you want to call it. But does a battery semi make sense? Do you think Tesla is getting too distracted? Should they just focus on building threes and Ys? What's your take on the Tesla semi?
I'm very bullish on it. It's like I was actually bring up for 2023. I think it's going to be the year of the truck and the SUV, and I'm talking about everything from the semi to like pickup trucks to SUVs. I think it's going to be the year where that really kind of hits the market hard, and the fact that Tesla is here first, not surprising. And I don't think they're making a mistake. I don't think they're being distracted by this. It's something, there is a market here, and they're proving that there is a market there, and they've got a product that actually can deliver on that. So I think this is definitely the year of the truck.
Yeah, I'm doing a video for Fully Charged about this, but I was thinking with one Tesla semi, you could build 11 Model Ys in terms of battery pack capacity, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's kind of the math in my head is, would you rather build one Tesla semi? And part of it is, as maybe, and Alex can try and talk to this, on the investor side, which is more profitable, which makes more sense as a company, but also in terms of miles reduced, right? I mean, one semi versus 11 Model Ys, and also the number of gallons that weren't burnt and things like that. So what's interesting is 11 Model Ys would actually drive further. So we'd have more miles electrified by building 11 Model Ys. But interestingly, in terms of gallons saved, it's dramatically in the favor of the semi. And it's because diesels get 6 to 7 miles a gallon. And so as you add up all those miles and the miles per gallon difference, it's interesting. Yeah, I do think 2023 should see a significant rise. Have you guys seen the Rivian delivery trucks, the Amazon trucks around where you guys live?
No, I haven't seen not those yet. Nope.
That's probably another good example. Not quite the scale of a semi, but yeah, I've recently been seeing them much more often around where I live, doing their deliveries and stuff. And I'd love to like call up Amazon and be like, what are the economics? Like, how much are you saving? What's like the end impact? Like, how much? Like, what does it mean to your bottom line business, right? But yeah. It's coming.
I tend to think of this. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Alex.
I tend to think of the semi in sort of like 3 discrete chunks. So there's the truck itself, so the EV. There's the autonomy component, which is like a little further down the road. But then there's also the infrastructure, right? So just like trucks today don't really necessarily fuel up in all the same exact spots that cars do. Like, for example, they can't fit into every single gas station today. I think what's actually not distracting about the semi, but makes it really a core part of Tesla's mission is just like you were saying, one, the actual gallons reduced and thus the pollution reduced is really great per semi, more than 11 Model Ys. But two, Tesla also has this huge infrastructure play, right? They have the biggest charging network on the world already. And if they can add sort of this industrial element to it, for example, charging electric trucks, electrified road stops and all that kind of stuff, for the trucking industry, now they're capturing this whole new market that other EV players haven't really started to capture yet. And there's a lot of economic value in capturing that market first, because there's a lot of brand loyalty around running your whole logistics chain through Tesla charging stations or whatever. So if they can provide as much utility as they do with those types of charging stations as they do with the ones that they have for consumers and, our electric cars today, I think that's going to be a huge long tail business for Tesla that it's going to be really hard for other companies to disrupt.
Were you going to say something, Matt?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay. So I was thinking to that point, and this kind of, I'd love to know your take on this. There are two things that Tesla originally mentioned when they unveiled the truck back in 2017, 5 years ago. My goodness. Is that right? 5 years ago. They mentioned a couple things. One was the bulletproof glass. And as a person who recently had to get his windshield replaced, as a truck driver, if your windshield is cracked, you can't drive it. And if you're waiting a day or two to get the windshield replaced, huge downtime, huge loss in revenue, and potentially, you could be stranded in some place you don't want to be. So bulletproof glass, there was no mention of that this time around. I bring it up because we haven't really heard much in the way of an update since the Cybertruck demo, I guess you can call it. And so the second thing is self-driving. In 2017, there was all this talk about, autopilot and auto steer, it'll drive itself, reduce driver fatigue, which is a big deal, especially on long road trips. But also like driving in a convoy where each one is butted up to the one behind it so they can kind of streamline and, trucks downwind could save on fuel or efficiency as a result of lower drag. But there's no mention of autonomy this time around. And I was talking with somebody who had a really good point. They said that part of the reason why they think Tesla left it out is because you need to get truck drivers on board, right? Some 10 or 15% of drivers, and I think Dusty's in the chat, he'll correct me if I'm wrong, about 10 or 15% of American truck drivers are owner-operators, meaning they're mom-and-pop businesses that they maintain their own trucks and they bid out jobs and drive around. Then, of course, you have Walmart and Amazon, the big boys who maintain their own fleet. But there's a whole slew of owner-operators. And so if you're telling people the trucks drive themselves, talk about taking our jobs and being scared, I think that might be part of the reason why they left it out. 3.5 million drivers in America, right? What do you what do you guys make about that?
I'll jump in here for the autonomy case. So I definitely think that's a valid point, right? I think we've seen time and time again that trying to get buy-in by telling people that they'll be out of the job is like a bad idea, right? We kind of saw that with the coal
People don't
industry
like
in the
that.
past
Okay.
and all that. Yeah, people don't like that, right?
Okay.
But I think the other thing that like I'm sure Elon Musk and everyone at Tesla is learning is that even though the AI and like the general perception problem might be the same for the bot and the cars and whatever, like they did a really good job talking about that during this previous AI day, the actual form factor and like executing on what you can see and sense is really, really hard. So specifically what I'm saying is the truck, the cars, and the robot might all experience the world roughly the same way. They break things up into volumes. They know which ones are occupied, which ones are safe to go through. They do like basic lane detection and route planning and all this stuff. And like they can build a path in the computer to like get from where they are to where they need to be. A humanoid bipedal robot, a consumer car, and an 18-wheeler semi all have to be controlled very, very differently with that same amount of information, right? So I think one reason, in addition to don't steal our jobs, is it's probably really, really hard to drive a truck autonomously. Like, have you ever tried to back up an 18-wheeler? Like, that's a really, really challenging task to do safely, especially in a high traffic area. So I think what they're realizing is like, oh, it's not the vision and perception. This is a whole different level of like control systems problem with its own regulations, commercial driving and infrastructure and all that. It's not as easy as we thought, and we're not as close as we thought to solving it, is one of my sneaky guesses.
Yeah, that was going to be my statement, which is self-driving is not close. Anybody that thinks it's close, nope, we're years away. It's like the tech, we're at the very infancy stage of that, and there's still so much to prove out. It's like on my Model 3, I'm in the beta group. I've got the software. I've experimented with what they've got, and whoa, is it far away from being ready for prime time. It's like it's incredible, absolutely incredible, but it's not happening next year. It's not happening the year after that. There's so much stuff to do, and Alex, you hit the nail on the head. The semi is a completely different beast. It's like the way you drive a semi is completely different from the way you drive a sedan. So completely different things you have to take into account. So there's years of work to be done, which I think is why they've been quieting down that sales pitch.
So John Check says, I know a lot of YouTubers have ordered the Tesla Semi, which uses a special charging system. All these people on their private network going to charge the Tesla Semi. So I know now ordered one. There are some others, I think, as well. Pricing actually has kind of been abstracted. I'm not really sure if they've released exact figures. John, thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate you. There's quite a bit of chat about this. I think the Semi is one of those things that is going to get people riled up. So there's a gentleman named Trucker202, and he says electric semi truck will fail miserably. So this is one of those, it's going to be very hit or miss. It's going to be controversial and polarizing for people. Change is just a hard thing. If I've learned anything on YouTube, you tell someone that the future is going to be different. And for most people, they like things like they are now, which is probably a good sign for how good the times are. But change is tough for people, I think, generally.
Yeah.
It's human nature.
I think the other thing that like we're kind of not saying, but should probably at least be acknowledged is, let's say self-driving for semis got solved tomorrow. we still wouldn't see them on the road because there's like commercial regulations, commercial insurance. There's all the like boring stuff that we don't talk about on YouTube because like how do you make a video about autonomous driving and insurance forms? But like that doesn't mean it's not a real valid
I would
like
watch that.
roadblock for yeah, you know what I mean? But like okay, yeah, I mean like if we can find an exciting way to talk about car insurance, let's do it. But like the reality is there's all these regulations that and safety tests that need to pass. When a trucker and a residential sedan collide, it's a news story. But if we find out that a robot was driving the truck, it would be an international phenomenon, right? So like there needs to be a dialogue around safety and policy and regulation and like liability, right? So there's all these other things that are not technical problems, but are real roadblocks for this thing becoming a reality that just need to be acknowledged as part of this larger picture, I think.
Yeah, the liability issue is something that always pops in my head of like, who's liable?
Yeah.
If my self-driving car smashes into somebody, am I responsible? Is the car responsible? Is Tesla because it's their software and their car crashed? It's like, who's liable for that? It doesn't necessarily make sense to blame me, the owner, when I didn't write the software. It's like if it crashed, you can blame Tesla software. So there's so much that we have to figure out how this works, and we're far away from that.
And don't forget about all the like little edge cases, right? Hey, I did everything right. My hands were ready at the wheel. I had my eyes on the road. Like, you know, they have systems to look for that. Oh, but Tesla didn't push me the latest safety update. And that's the feature that I missed that would have saved me from the situation. I just didn't get the update for whatever reason. Especially like for trucks, which often drive in through areas without service, right? They're driving through the middle of the country, down long straight roads that don't necessarily have cell towers around them. That could be a real issue there, right? Like, hey, I didn't get the latest update, and that was the feature I needed to save me from this liability situation. You know, now whose fault is it, right? Like, so there's all these little like secondary and tertiary things that just pop out of this, like, who is at fault when a soft piece of software drives a physical system that can endanger real lives, that we need to like really understand the full picture of.
I think there is a heightened awareness or thought being put into some of this stuff recently. I heard, and someone in the chat can correct me if I'm wrong, I heard California is telling Tesla not to use the language like full self-driving, to change the language. The lawyers get very worked up about language, but because I think part of it is people, I think, there's a perception, for some, Tesla is such a beloved company that when they say full self-driving, they think it's maybe closer than it is. And I can understand that. I could see why kind of level setting or expectation setting is an important part of it. But there's a whole can of worms that comes into it. Interestingly, for the semi case, I think maybe there might be a business case where Tesla, in the future where the trucks drive themselves, Tesla accepts the responsibility. I don't know why they would for passenger cars. Like, why take that extra for what? If you sell the car, you know, unless there's like a monthly subscription they built. It's
insurance.
It's
it would be insurance. You would get Tesla insurance, and that would cover liability in the event of an autonomous event, you know?
So there was a question about if a Tesla Semi could be used as like a charging station, like to charge other things or backup power. So interestingly, Tesla hasn't really done that in the past. Like, they don't allow vehicle to load or grid in their cars, but I mean, theoretically they could, right? It's going to be a 900 kilowatt hour battery pack. It's going to be massive.
Jeez.
You could power a city.
Oh my God. Yes, you could. Oh man.
All right. So let's.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So like on the Semi, one of the things that I was thinking of, just like, I guess we're to talk about the future EVs. So like one of the things that Tesla is doing now is they're integrating their battery packs into the structure of the car. That's rolling out in the next like couple of years here, because it was announced a couple of years ago at Battery Day, right? I'm curious to see all of the structural changes that they get to make to semis that we're not really appreciating because like we all drive consumer vehicles, that will drastically change the range, the performance, the tow capability. You know, if they're making these big changes to the regular automobile, I'm very curious to see how those changes shake out and what that actually means for the trucking industry when it's, you know, when they can optimize the whole structure in a very different way just because of where the power comes from, you know? That's it. Yeah. That's all I want to say.
Yeah. I mean, I'm curious about things like that, because I mean, it's a lower volume machine, right? They're not going to be building a million like they are going to be with the Y. So I'm curious the level of refinement or optimizations that are made.
Yeah, good point.
But there's definitely interesting things. I'll leave it with this, by the way. Elon mentioned something which I had been thinking about, and I'm so glad he brought it up, which is that electric semis are allowed to be 2,000 pounds heavier. So there's a question of like, just overall capacity, 900 kilowatt hours of batteries, roughly. That's my prediction. Is going to weigh a lot, right? But diesels, engines are massive too, and they need transmissions and everything else. So the end result might not be as bad as you think. I mean, my rough calculation was 8,000 pounds heavier would a Tesla semi be compared to a traditional. And on an 80,000 pound max curb weight, that matters. But EV semis can be 2,000 pounds heavier, making it maybe closer to 6,000. So clearly, when Tesla's involved with this, they're going to get in touch with lawmakers. I think this is going to happen quickly. And I think the people who say that EV semis will never work, I think you're going to be surprised at how quickly you're going to see these things rolling around. And there's others, right? There's other companies building them as well. So, okay. So that's Tesla Semi. What else are you guys interested in? Or what are some predictions? How about this? Predictions for 2023. What are we going to see? Future headlines.
Oh, man.
I think we're going to see a lot of businesses get started around like the same things that we're really excited for. So businesses that live on top of GPT-3, businesses that live on top of Stable Diffusion, whatever. And only a small percentage of them are going to succeed. So I think we're going to find out that AI is like going to be a really hot commodity. And then just like we saw a whole bunch of fintech businesses or EV startups or whatever over the last few years, they all rolled out, all went public as fast as possible. And it turns out most of them were flashes and pans. We'll start seeing the same thing happen with like real creative AI tools where people will start to run like agencies of robots trying to, displace all the thumbnail makers or all of the script writers or all whatever. And a very, very small percentage of them will be successful. And there will be some middle layer that needs to get invented that lets people like code and like really standardize like the outputs of these AIs. So I'm curious to see like how these little building blocks of like, oh, let me take that script off your plate, let me take that piece of art off your plate, get built up into different types of businesses.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a influx of software as a service platforms that are trying to like lay themselves on top of existing stuff. I mean, I've actually been talking to a couple of people that are doing this in the energy space for homeowners, and it's like, it's exciting, but it's like, oh, there's another one. Oh, comes another one, and this, and a fourth, and a fifth, and it's like, okay, you guys are like, most you're going to go out of business, but you're going to see a flood of that for sure.
For sure.
The AI stuff, we think of computers and smartphones and stuff, but the applications are limitless, really, literally limitless, probably. I was just reading about this, and I think I'm going to try to reach out and meet the company or just do a video. But there's this agricultural machine that instead of large-scale pesticide spraying, where you have these big machines just spraying horrible chemicals into the ground, which eventually becomes your food later, they have this AI camera, like LiDAR and laser system. So it's scanning this entire, large 15-foot run of area of this big tiller, and it's looking on the cameras, and it has AI built in to detect weeds versus crops. And so you're just rolling over your corn and your tomatoes and your cabbage or whatever, and it'll actually just start firing off lasers. So it has like an array of lasers, like high intensity lasers, and it just burns weeds. And you got to watch this thing in motion. It is, I feel like as much, yeah.
That sounds amazing.
It sounds terrifying. Terrifying. Well, when the AI becomes self-aware, it's now got laser cannons that can go rolling around.
The good news there, Matt, is it's in a little bin and it shoots downward. So I mean, just don't build like actuators that can rotate the till up or something. Yeah,
90 degrees.
I hear you.
Weeds with humans, and it's like.
But imagine like not needing to spray fields with just the worst stuff, all to blanket coverage a few things. But yeah, this is insane. And it was showing like in real time, 20, 30 frames per second, it can recognize and draw boxes on weeds versus good plants. And it just rolls over everything and just doop, doop, doop. And just, it's incredible. It's just such incredibly fascinating stuff. And there's a ton of R&D going on around all this stuff. So I want to quickly kind of switch gears. I haven't thought about this all that much. I'm more of a long-term investor, so I don't really mess with stock. But I think you guys have seen the markets have been horrible. There's been this kind of latent lag in the recession that's kind of, we thought it would happen in 2020. It was the opposite, but now I think we're seeing interest rates going up and stuff. So what does the future look like, Alex? I'm gonna lean on you here. This is your area of expertise for sure. But I mean, is this a good? As far as tech stocks like AI stocks or energy companies, Teslas, the like, but just generally, I mean, what do you think is going to happen in 2023?
Yeah, so I do think that the market's going to keep going down. That's not really a hot take because like we know that the interest rates are going to keep rising throughout 2023, making it like a bad time to get into like high growth, high tech, high risk industries for the short term, right? So if you're a long-term investor, now's probably a good time to at least start identifying the industries you care about, doing your homework on the companies that you think you might want to invest in, dip your toes in the market, maybe average down, whatever, but realize that you're going to probably net lose money in the short term at the cost of like getting in at low prices over the long term, right? So if you think back to like 2007 or 2008 or 1999 to 2000, this would kind of be like investing while the bubble is popping and like going way down. And then the thing to remember is bubbles take a long time to pop. It could be 18 months or 2 years, and then they take a long time to recover. So for example, Microsoft, one of the best companies on the planet, took 15 years to reach a new all-time high after its high peak at the dot-com bubble. I'm a big investor in Microsoft. I have stock in it, whatever. That's not a hit against the business, but the market, a stock is not the business, right? There's a big disconnect between what's going on in the stock market and what's actually going on at these companies. So that's one view. And then the other view is just innovation and technology solve problems. We sure have a lot of problems today, but the solutions take time to mature. So now's a great time to invest in those things if you have a stomach and an appetite for risk. But if you don't, there's nothing wrong with waiting for things to be more fleshed out, like seeing Tesla Semi on the road and seeing that it passes regulatory checks and like all that kind of stuff before your investment thesis starts including the Tesla Semi, right? So
is what percent or what percent of the blame do you think falls on rising interest rates? I think that might be one of the core impacts that Tesla's feeling. I think they've shown some slashing some prices for the first time in a long time. Is it just consumer buying power reductions? And
yeah, so for Tesla stock specifically, I think there's a lot of things coming to a head in a lot of weird ways. So maybe not weird, right? But like, sure, inflation and interest rates is one. Elon Musk buying Twitter and like, the thesis that he's distracted, whether you believe that or not, that's definitely priced into the stock. And then there are other things that are out of Tesla's control. So for example, China has a zero COVID policy. I think they're just starting to lift it now, but a large portion of Tesla's production and market is in China. So obviously Chinese policy is going to affect some of their sales and delivery numbers. And that's not something that's in Tesla's control, but it is part of their problem. So I think what we're seeing is a whole bunch of different kind of risks, just manifesting all at once. And then I think Tesla may be in that unique position where Elon Musk is kind of this unquantifiable variable where he's like, when he's on fire, the stock is up. And when he's working on a completely different problem like Twitter, the idea is he's not in parallel working on Tesla. So then Tesla stock, whether it's right or not, also goes down. And that's a unique problem to Tesla, in my opinion, and SpaceX. But SpaceX is a private company, and so is Twitter now. So
that's interesting. He ran that poll about if he should step down as CEO of Twitter. And I'm not sure if it backfired on him or if that was what he expected. But he does seem to be increasingly polarizing. And I think for me, it's always been I care about the work, not so much the man. And so I don't really follow him very closely. I've just been a fan of what he's accomplished or the things that he's kind of built. But he does seem increasingly polarizing. I wonder if he ran a poll, and I actually think it would be totally the opposite result. But if you ran a poll, should I step down as the CEO of Tesla, which people have also mentioned, I wonder how that vote would go. Depends on if it was on Twitter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Tesla, I think something people don't really appreciate about probably Tesla and SpaceX at this point is that like they're really good companies. And what I mean is, let's say Elon Musk just like took his hands off the wheel tomorrow and he was like, I'm retiring. You know what? I just can't do it anymore for whatever reason, right? Tesla's not going to crash and burn, right? Like that's a really well-oiled machine. They have gigafactories all over the world. They're rolling out great cars at record paces, and so on. It's like SpaceX has already landed rockets backwards on waterborne barges, right? So are they going to need new leadership and new guidance and somebody to be that beacon and direct them? Sure. But are these companies going to fall apart if Elon steps down in them? In my opinion, absolutely not. So I think it's like overpriced in for Tesla that he's distracted by working on Twitter because the rest of Tesla's leadership is great. They're executing. He's not out there hand making these cars, right?
So Matt, this one's for you. Do you worry that, I mean, we've had such a prolific year in terms, you mentioned it earlier, the breakthroughs, right? There's a breakthrough every week. And if it isn't companies, it's academia, it's universities, but that all comes from the same thing, which is just available capital. Like there's money floating around in the pursuit of better, cleaner, smarter ways of doing things, right? New battery techs and solar breakthroughs and perovskite and all this other stuff. Do you think that the economy and just interest rates and this everything that we talked about recently is going to hinder future research and development and breakthroughs in 2023? Are we going to have nothing to talk about? Are we going to be sitting here talking about no more clickbait breakthrough titles?
No, we'll still be doing that because there's still going to be plenty of stuff happening. It's gonna have an impact. It would be foolish to say it's not, but it's not going to slow things down to a crawl. It's still going to be happening. Academia is going to keep doing research. Private companies are still going to be doing investments into new technologies. Like QuantumScape is not going to stop working on solid state batteries. It's like things are still going to be moving forward. We just may not see the rapid fire week after week after week that we've seen in 2022. It might slow down from that, but it's not going to stop at all. It's definitely going to keep going.
Yeah, that's my thinking and my hope as well. But some of this stuff, it's very expensive, and you need like constant funding. It's easy to dry up. Some of these tests and things take so long. I'm optimistic, but
at the same time, it's like you have the economy slowing and heading into a recession potentially, but there's so much investment in trying to get to clean technologies. It's like I feel like that's going to kind of offset some of this. Unless you live in California and whatever they're doing there with the whole solar panel thing right now, where they're changing how solar panels work and how much money you can get from it, which I think is insane, but we can talk about that some other day. But it's one of those, depending on where you live, there are investments from governments into what's going on that's going to help offset what I think we'll see from private industry.
I totally hear you. My concern, though, typically, if you think about kind of like the hierarchy of needs, if you will, being cleaner is just lower than other things. And if things like, for example, right now, you're right, there's a lot of infrastructure bills and money being allocated to some of these initiatives. But that was during a time when everyone is getting rich, just throwing rocks at stock and making money. And as that shifts a little bit, I hope you're right. I hope that's not the case, that we see past a 1-year time horizon and think about the future in a more broad way. But my one concern as far as some of these innovations and breakthroughs is that we're going to retract into our little shells and just worry about the immediate needs, which typically are one of the enemies of future progress.
That's one of the reasons we'll probably see it slow. It's like in 2023, it's going to be harder for a new startup to get funding, but there are already tons of startups that got a ton of funding last year, and that's going to carry them for the next few years. So it's like, that's why I was saying it's not going to stop progress, but it might slow it down a little bit, and newer companies might have a hard time getting started, which is a shame, but we're going to still see lots of progress.
Yeah, we'll see lots of consolidation, right? Like lots of companies will buy companies that are trying to get started. Hey, I have a viable product, but no money to like launch it or whatever. And then bigger companies who have that funding might absorb them, incorporate that product into their overall portfolio, launch it. So I think 2023 will be a year of consolidation. And then 2024 will be a year of, hey, new companies are actually in an environment where they can go public, get funding, however they want to do it. I think this year is definitely going to be the really painful year for new businesses with great ideas, but not the money to execute.
So Motorhead says, "LOL, union robots," which is my favorite comment so far.
Yeah, there you
The
go.
thought of like all the robots going to get together and collectively bargain and negotiate. And, uh, so okay, so what else? What else are we going to see in 2023 in terms of trends? In some of these industries that we've seen such great progress in. Do you have any other predictions, Alex? What about you? I'm sure you're sitting on just gold over there. What do you got for us?
Trends and predictions for 2023.
Yeah.
I think crypto is going to stay down, but we're going to see so here's my not hot take and then like a hot take on top of it. Hot take, or sorry, not hot take first. Crypto is going to be in an extended winter and it's going to stay down. Hot take is there will be some real viable business solutions that come out of the blockchain that aren't necessarily about selling a token, but it's like, hey, NFTs started as art and then people kind of like laugh that away. But if there's going to be a real provable business model around like, ownership on the internet, so like VIN numbers for your car, deeds for your house, whatever, somebody will find a real viable way to do that through the blockchain this coming year. Another one will be like a distributed competitor to YouTube. So I think there's going to be a real competitor come out that's not centralized, that's much harder to hack, much harder to moderate and all that kind of stuff. So the problem with YouTube, Twitter, and all these centralized services is you can define a moderation policy and enforce it. But if the distribution is done on everybody's machine, like through a blockchain, now no one can go and say, hey, you're not allowed to post this kind of content. And I think after all the censorship stuff that we've seen in 2022, the Twitter files, all the sort of conspiracy theories that were proven or not proven true from both sides, right? There's a real hunger in the market for a decentralized version of social media. So I think somebody will build that. Whether it's successful or not, we'll ultimately see, but we'll see a business come alive around decentralized social media is my other one.
I was going to say, we actually kind of already have that right now, though. Like there's the video platform Odyssey, which is based on blockchain that already exists. It's not a federated model. It's a one platform kind of a thing. So there is potentially a policy shift that could cause problems. And then on social media, because people are leaving Twitter in a massive number of people, they're going to Mastodon. Mastodon is really kind of picking up steam. And I joined Mastodon recently. And it's a federated model where you can spin up your own Mastodon server. And the Wall Street Journal just started their own Mastodon server. So it's really interesting where you have these little silos, but they all talk amongst each other. So you can post a comment on your server, but then everybody sees it. So I think we're already seeing that take hold right now. But I think you're right. 2023 is going to be the year where that really, like, if Mastodon continues to grow like that, it's like it could suddenly become like the next big thing. I don't know if it will, because the user experience going into Mastodon for the first time sucks. It's awful.
Get in there and clean it up, Matt.
Yeah, but once you're into it, though, it's just like Twitter, and it's really cool. I've been using it for the past month, and it's fantastic.
I'm glad you brought that up. I've been hearing about this shift. The social media stuff. I'm an old man when it comes to it. I gotta get hip to it. But I'll check it out.
It reminds me of Twitter from back when it first started. It's like it's not an algorithm feed; it's a linear timeline feed, which I really prefer. It's not ads injected everywhere. It feels like the good old days of Twitter to me, being on there, which is a lot of fun.
I haven't heard of either of those. I will definitely check them out for sure.
Yeah, maybe we could chat about your findings in a future live stream. So, if you guys, is there anything else you want to talk about in the realm of social media? Which social media is on people's minds. There's no doubt about it, and I think it's going to be increasingly at the forefront in 2023. So, is there anything else you want to chime in or add about that?
Not on social media.
Not right now.
Okay, so I'll turn this over to the audience. Why don't you guys give us your predictions? Do some sort of like hashtag prediction or something so I can find you from the feed. But what are your predictions for 2023, audience? We'll pick some of the favorite ones and we'll chat about it. And in the meantime, hydrogen. Hydrogen is like the thing that just won't go away. And I find it fascinating. Whenever I do a video on hydrogen, it does well. And this is my audience, who I would have thought would be more on the purely electric battery side. But clearly, there's just a passion and interest around hydrogen, and clearly, I think the shortfalls and the benefits are pretty well documented. We can maybe chat about that a little bit and summarize. But what does the future of hydrogen look like? 2023 beyond. Clearly, I think there's a lot of investment. I actually was looking at a home battery that
Yep.
I kid you not, this is at your house. Solar panel input, like so DC input, runs electrolysis and produces hydrogen into a storage tank in your house. Now it's lower pressure, so there's not the major concern of the Hindenburg, but this is a hydrogen home battery, and like they're hoping to commercialize it and sell it to people pretty soon. So clearly it's not going away. What do you guys make of hydrogen? Have you thought about it? I'm sure Matt has. Alex, I don't know if you have as much, but there are some, like there's hydrogen semi-truck companies. There's all kinds of startups and things in the space. Right. But Matt, I think Matt's going to have, Matt, why don't we jump to you? What do you make of hydrogen?
I agree with you. It's an incredibly polarizing topic. You're either on the hydrogen bandwagon or you think it's the biggest foolish thing ever. I think there's a very nuanced approach to this, which doesn't typically work well in online discussions, unfortunately. My take is for transportation, hydrogen is just not going to work. For things like heating homes, it's just a dumb idea. And I know the UK is actually planning on doing that right now, which I think is beyond stupid. You can't just pump hydrogen through existing natural gas lines. You're going to have leaks. It's going to corrode pipes. It's not built for it. It's the worst thing you can do. But when you talk about where it could work, I think for like energy storage, it makes a ton of sense. Like what you just brought up, it's like, think about grid scale energy storage or a commercial building or hospitals or your home. There's a company in Australia, I think it's called Lavo. I think it's the name of the company. They have a thing on the market. They've had it on the market for years now. It's that exact thing where it takes whatever electricity you feed into it, electrolyzes it on premises, stores it in a solid hydrogen storage system, and then it comes out the other end as power again. It's basically just a big battery. It's like a Tesla Powerwall that's just generating its own hydrogen, storing it, and then pumping it back out through a fuel cell to give you electricity back out. The efficiency is not as good as a battery, but guess what? It's like, it doesn't matter if the end cost it's affordable, safe. Like it's like, that's the ultimate thing. What's the end cost for the user? And if the end cost makes sense, those are great products. And so for me, when I talk about hydrogen, it's energy storage where I think it's going to really take off. For transportation, not so much. Heating homes, absolutely not. It's just doesn't make sense. But there's specific areas where I think it makes a lot of sense.
So before I jump in, thank you to John Chuck again for a super chat. He says 2023 EA charging stations will be mostly broken still until somebody takes them over. Watch Kyle's video. So he's referring to Kyle Connor, who does out of spec motoring. And
I just watch those.
Nobody on earth puts electric vehicles and the charging infrastructures through their paces like Kyle does. He'll tell you like every station between here and the west of the Mississippi, probably. And EA's got their work cut out for them for sure. So really quick, I'm just going to go through some of the predictions here. Darren, this is great. I have nothing further to add to this. Darren says prediction, monkey tennis. I agree 100%. My wife, Claudia, says Ricky will buy me a Rivian. We'll see about that. Bong Hollywood says space travel will be more and more accessible to millions. Will be more accessible to millionaires and not for trillionaires and astronauts anymore. So maybe not for everyone, but the wealthier, let's say the top 40% instead of the top 1%, right? That's actually a very well stated prediction. I think he's probably got something there.
Yeah, I like that one.
So Solar Cabin says prediction, green hydrogen stations will be built all along freeways and highways for long-haul trucking and buses until we get high-speed rail. Look at Japan and China. So he seems to think that it could work in transportation, which is interesting. This is kind of the crux of the argument is, do you want to put 900 kilowatt hours of lithium and cobalt and manganese and nickel into batteries like the Semi, or a cylindrical hydrogen carbon fiber sleeve tank to hold hydrogen? I understand the appeal. There's challenges to your point, Matt, about efficiency, but I'm telling you, there are a few things. Yeah, Matt says I'd be more than happy to be wrong about hydrogen transportation. Exactly. What I love is a diverse investment in all sorts of things because you never know. One of my favorite little stories in science. I'm going to put on my science hat for a second. When we were there, I think it was Michigan State University was doing research on E. coli, and what they were doing is they were trying to figure out. They had test tubes where they had like a sugar for food, and it was kind of in a basic formula of like a acid, like a citric acid or something. And they started to see how differences in environment would affect the population, the amount of reproduction and the numbers of these viruses. And in one of the vials, they were like, "What? Must be a mistake." Like it doubled, the number doubled, and the reason was there had been a mutation previously, and a second mutation where now this E. coli could eat the citric acid, which was not supposed to be food, but now it could metabolize it, and suddenly the numbers blew up. Right? I think of life this way. Sometimes there's two things we can't see them happening on the horizon, but like item one happens, we have hydrogen, and then suddenly in 2026 or something, some breakthrough thing happens, and then all of a sudden we just look back at it and think, wow, this is not what I thought was going to happen. So the only way to make sure that we have a chance at that future is if we invest in all of it. You never know how the winners and losers will fall. But hydrogen clearly it's polarizing. And what's funny is I don't think of science as polarizing, right? Science is the pursuit of what is. It's not about opinions but for whatever reason, certain things like Tesla, Elon, hydrogen, how about nuclear power? You'll talk about polarizing.
Oh, man.
Do you polarizing? You either think we're fools for building wind turbines and we should be just building nuclear power plants, or you hate them and you don't want anything to do with them. Funny, it's funny how polarizing these things can be. Let me take a quick look and see if there's any other. Mike Milton says, prediction, Tesla will create an octavalve-like system to replace home HVAC. So the idea is to better handle heat, which is just another form of energy in our houses. So you take heat out of a refrigerator, well, that's heat. That could be used to heat your hot water tank or other applications where you need heat. So I would love to see that, homes that are built better that way. We'll see. Let's talk a little bit about your homes, right? Like I've recently been thinking about home tech, because my house is terribly inefficient. I have my 1 year of electric bills, and so I would guess that Alex has the cheapest bills because Florida is really, really, really cheap when it comes to electricity. I'm gonna guess Matt is second. Massachusetts is kind of on the higher end for sure, but it's not stupid like California, and especially San Diego is the most expensive. I think the only place more expensive is Honolulu. But my electric bills, $5,600 for the year, just electricity. Factor another $1,700 for natural gas is what I paid. Wow. So this next year, I'm investing in all kinds of little things. Like, for example, I still have a dumb thermostat. I've just been focused on the channel. I haven't really invested in anything, but I've been waiting for Matter to take off, which is that new home tech standard. Yeah. Alex, are you into home? Like smart home kind of stuff?
I'm not very, and I apologize. I actually have to go.
Okay, no worries.
I'm actually going to drop off.
We appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on. We can just kind of chat for another couple of minutes, but yeah, we'll see you soon. Hopefully these live shows will do more often. Alex will be back. Have a great one.
Yeah.
See you, Alex.
You too.
So Matt, you should be excited. It's always been a dream of mine to have a smarter house, but I've always felt it was fragmented and we needed something different.
Yeah.
Are we there? Is it time to finally get excited about smart homes?
It is. I really do. If we want to talk about predictions, I would say 2023 is the year of the smart home, and mainly because of Matter. I've basically on my home been moving everything over to what's called Thread. It's a protocol for smart homes, doing local control, everything locally. I've used HomeKit as my main hub for everything, but the way things are moving this year and products are already coming out and getting updated for Matter, it's going to be huge next year. It's going to change everything. The user experience of setting something up and having it just work is getting much, much easier. It's finally at the point now where you can literally just plug it in, set it up, and forget about it, where that was not the case just 2 years ago. So there's been a huge improvement from the Matter and Thread protocols that are out there that are getting integrated into more and more stuff. I'm going to be going kind of nuts with my new house that I'm currently building with my smart home setup in the new place, and I'm basing everything on Thread and Matter, and it's going to be very cool. What's going to be coming in the next year?
Give me a second. I'm going to try to drop Alex off.
And that's me with the chair.
There we go. Okay.
There, two of us.
Yeah, so I've been quietly waiting because I've just felt like the entire smart home thing was so frustrating. And
Yes.
there was a time when I was so excited that I was happy to tinker, and I wrote a lot of my own scripting and my own language and stuff. But the problem with that is you have to maintain it, right? So there's some software update, they changed some API, now everything's breaking, and all these things you had built no longer work. And then suddenly you have to go and maintain them. And all the excitement now is over. Like you had fun building it. Now you just want it to work. And so I've just been waiting. I think you're right. So Thread. So tell me a little bit more about Thread. I'm curious. So Matter is the kind of the protocol, right?
Yes. Yeah. The Matter is just the protocol, and it can work over Wi-Fi and different wireless technologies. But typically in smart homes, you had Zigbee or Z-Wave as like the wireless protocols. And Thread is kind of an offshoot of like Zigbee. It's kind of like its own thing. So there's a Thread radio that's getting integrated. And the beauty of it is it creates a mesh network of everything in your home. So the more Thread devices you get, the better your Thread network becomes. And devices can talk to each other across the Thread network in different ways. So you have, I don't want to get too complicated, but there's Thread border routers and edge things and repeaters and things like that. Depends on the product you're getting. So like if in an Apple home, if you have a HomePod Mini, that's your border router. That's the thing that's like controlling everything. And then you get a smart plug that's Thread. It's communicating to the HomePod. You get another one. Those two can communicate to each other. I have water control things that from a company called Eve for my outside water spigots. And those are Thread. So everything starts to be able to coordinate and get better. And I got to tell you, over the past 3 or 4 months, my smart home is the most reliable it's ever been, hands down. Things are working faster. Everything is local, snappy, quick. I have had to do far less maintenance on the brain of the system, where 2 years ago, it was like what you were talking about. It's like, oh, this was working great and suddenly just stopped working. Why is it not working? I have to go in here and fiddle with something. So with Thread, it helps to alleviate some of that. I've been finding it's a more reliable wireless protocol that's showing up in more and more devices.
So is Thread still kind of in its infancy, or are there more products that are offering it now? Because I actually
it's still kind of, Thread's been around for a while. Google was pushing it a long time ago. The Nest products, like the Nest Protect smoke alarms, had Thread built in, but nobody was really using it. But over the past couple of years, Apple and others have been pushing it more. And so you're starting to see it in more and more products starting to show up. Like right behind me, I have a smart air filter that's Thread enabled. So it's not on my Wi-Fi network. It's not, exposed to the internet. It's its own thing, locally controlled across my smart home service. So it's just a cheap, easy way for things to work. And we're seeing this starting to show up in more and more products. It's still limited compared to what you can find for Zigbee and Z-Wave, but it's definitely picking up steam. And 2023 feels like the year it's going to take over, because Matter, one of the key technologies of Matter, is Thread. It's one of the pieces of the backbone of it. So I think we're going to see even more products start to show up.
All right, that's a good prediction. I'm really excited because I've been waiting. I didn't want to invest and have stuff that I have to eventually replace. So right now my house is super dumb. I have a dumb thermostat. We don't have any of the door locks. We don't have a Ring camera. My wife has been pushing us to get a Ring doorbell camera thing, which we had in our old house. It's great, right? Anyone comes to the front door, everyone knows about it. You get notifications on your phone. You can talk to people. You don't miss packages, right? And now we don't. And in our house now, the front door is kind of in a cove. So if you didn't know, or the dogs didn't bark, you could easily not know that somebody's at the door. But the reason I've been waiting is a part you mentioned, which is not being online and not having footage and things being sent to some person's server, in this case, Amazon, which bought Ring. and
Yep.
keeping everything local, which is one of my major tenets as well. But whatever I come up with, I want it to be local. I want it to be quick, not going out to the cloud and back, and prone to bad actors and stuff. So I think we're. So I'm kind of curious. Do you have any plans of covering more smart home stuff? I know. Fun fact, you guys might not know this, but Matt Ferrell kind of got to start talking about this. I remember there was like 3 or 4 videos. That's how I met Matt. Was I was looking for product advice or things, and he had videos about like all kinds of cameras. I think it was Eufy at the time, or I forget what the company was. Is that something you would ever go back to, or are you pretty ingratiated in what you're doing now?
It is. I'm considering spinning up another channel and getting back into that stuff. So if I spin up another channel, it's going to be totally dedicated to consumer electronics and smart homes and things like that. Because it doesn't quite fit my channel anymore. So if I talk about that stuff on my main channel, the YouTube algorithm and gods will be angry when I do that. So I may not do it on Undecided. It's a new thing, but there is so much I want to talk about because my interest in that product category has not changed. I've been doing a lot of experimentation over the past couple of years in the background, and there's so much I want to talk about. I just need to find a place to talk about it.
Okay, yeah, that's a good idea. I do really enjoy it as well. For me though, I'm okay with the tinkering and the adjustments and the configuration while I'm excited about it. After that, you have to just work. You can't. I'm not updating my GitHub and updating code. That's what I've learned I don't want to do, because then it's just work. You've added work. And how smart is your house if I can just walk up to a light switch and flick it today, and now I have to go write code? And it has to be convenient and actually work. Monarch says, don't go in Amazon ecosystem. I have no plans to. I actually didn't know this until my brother told me, but I had Eero, I think is the name of the company, Eero routers. So my little AP mesh wireless network, and I guess Amazon bought them too. More modern packaging, it says, an Amazon company on it. So I actually swapped that all out. I'm curious what you're running, Map. I actually just went with Ubiquiti and the Unify system, which is so killer. It was always the dream network setup, and I finally just bit the bullet and decided, working from home, having our entire company here, our networking just has to be good. And there's still a lot more to do. I want to hardwire more stuff, 10 gig internet and stuff. But yeah, I'm actually kind of curious if I probably shouldn't do this on the main channel either. I don't know. We'll see. But I would like to. I would like to do, and it's all in the pursuit of lowering energy bills, right? Or reducing our consumption. Because that's what I want. I want to have all these conveniences without wasting things when I don't need to. And I have a ton of waste, let me tell you.
Yeah, I'm still on Eero in my current house, and in the new house, I'm going Ubiquiti. I'm doing the whole unified network, everything local, 10 gig internet, the security cameras from them, for smart home stuff like automatic blinds, which are like, it feels like so luxury to have smart blinds, but there actually is some rationale behind it of it can automatically put the blinds down if the sun is beaming in that window, whether you're in the room or not. And that can help reduce your heating and cooling costs because you're cutting down how much the sun is heating that room. So you can control aspects of how the home behaves and set up automation so you don't have to think about it. The house just takes care of itself. And so there's an aspect of smart homes that really does pertain to what we talk about on our channels. It's just finding a path to talk about it.
Yes.
Is the challenge.
And so speaking of which, I don't know if you guys probably all know Matt Ferrell, but I don't know if all of you guys know that he is moving and he is doing a really cool, very modern build. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? And is that going to be on your main channel in the future?
Yes, it is.
Awesome.
I've got one video about I'm building a factory. It's a factory built home that's going to be to passive house level quality for heating and cooling, air tightness. It's going to have an ERV, ground source heat pump. I'm going kind of nuts with the energy efficiency for this house. I live in the Northeast, so it's going to be very important for the winter times. I already have a video out on my channel about the factory built portion because the walls are manufactured in the facility and then it's just assembled on site. And the on-site assembly is actually happening next Tuesday. They're actually showing up and putting the house up. And in a matter of like 3 or 4 days, there'll just suddenly be a house there, which is really kind of cool and exciting and trippy. And I'm going to be videotaping the whole thing, getting time lapse of it. and I'll be putting up videos about the whole process. I've already
Love
got
it.
the factory
Okay.
built portion. I'll have the on-site portion, and then I'll have walkthroughs when it's all complete about how it works, why I did what I did, all that kind of stuff.
I'm glad to hear that. I cannot wait to see that. I saw your footage that you did in the factory where you showed kind of how some of these walls were built.
Yeah.
I might be wrong. Is it how thick are your walls, by the way?
When they're all done, they're going to be, I think, 15 inches thick when it's all done. When you're talking about the siding and the drywall and everything, yeah, they're
Insane.
big boys.
That is like the opposite of my house. My house is like I've told you, I have like gaps under doors. It's going to be a whole thing I'm going to do this year. It's been tough for me to. I kind of announced that I'm going to do this whole net zero kind of build. It's just been tough to do. First of all, it's expensive. It's really time consuming, these things, right? Compared to making videos and stuff. But I really think we have enough editors now to be able to hopefully pull it off, and I'm hoping to do it. But I'm really curious to see how you do some of the things that you're going to do. You mentioned like the ground source heat pump. I'm just super curious. I think you're going with water furnace, right?
Yeah, it's going to be a water furnace system. Yep.
I'm looking forward to seeing
I'm really
all
excited
that.
to experience it too. It's like I'm very excited
That's
to see
awesome.
how it performs.
Yeah, definitely critical where you live. I remember I just drove down from the Bay Area, and it was like in the 40s, mid 40s, 50s when I was up there. We were driving back down. There's this little mountain that separates Southern and Northern California. You go up the hill, it gets cold. You go down, and then you're officially in Southern California, and it's like 15 degrees warmer, and there's palm trees, and it was like, so nice to be home. So it's not as
Just because of the mountain range.
I'm not sure, man. It's hard to explain. It is a geographic barrier. Anyone who's done that drive knows, but it's not as critical for us. But man, we do waste a ton of heat, and don't get me wrong. There's some days when it'll be in the 40s, low 40s at night, and I know that's not crazy cold, but there's drafts coming through that house, man. The problem for me is old house. It's over 50 years old. All the windows are not great, right? I can feel drafts through every window. I mean, just the cost of it all is kind of mind-numbing. And I recently got a new roof. I don't know if I've told you about that.
Yeah.
Just in time for the rains, and a roof shouldn't make you so happy, but oh God, it brings me so much joy to know that I got that off my plate. John says it was negative. What's that?
Are you gonna get solar put up on the roof now that you've got the roof redone?
Yeah, so that is starting to happen. I was on holiday. I was in gone for Christmas when they started, but some of the footing is in, and some of the wires and conduit is up. So I don't know if we're gonna be able to do it before the end of the year, but yes, in the next couple of weeks I'll have solar, and it can't come soon enough. As I mentioned, our bills are just outlandish. But there's a ton of things I can improve on. The first is just sealing the house up better. This office where we're sitting in, the floor, there's no insulation down. So there was a really cold winter day when I came in here, and if I just spilled water, I could have gone skating on. It was like freezing. The floors were just freezing. There's no insulation anywhere. It's just, I'll never be bored. Let's just put it that way. And you're gonna be like sitting in your 15-inch walls, just
toasty warm.
That's amazing. I'm really curious how. I think the two of us should definitely touch base at least once in a while, and see what we're up to, and how we could learn from each other. There's probably going to be some stuff, definitely, and the smart home automation is really where I'd love your expertise, to not go down the wrong rabbit holes. And there were some comments about like avoid the big tech kind of stuff. I totally get that. Like I don't. Google and Amazon don't need any more information from me than they already have.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Prometheus says, yeah, smart home, just off internet. Exactly. And Stefan says old. When I said my house is 50 years old, he says this one is from 1720. He's in Europe somewhere. That first of all, that sounds amazing. And I'm not sure what you guys do in terms of sealing things up, but yeah, that sounds pretty picturesque. Yeah. I wouldn't mind living in that.
15-inch. He also said 15-inch walls. That's pretty standard around here. It's like, yes, Europe is way ahead of the United States. They're like a decade ahead of us for building standards. It's like we are lagging way behind. So what's groundbreaking for my house in the U.S. is just par for the course over there, 100%.
So we can wrap this up with what videos? Do you have a video that you're working on you can share with us next week, or
Right
coming
now,
up?
nothing. Like, I'm taking a 2-week break. I am not thinking about work. I am just taking it easy. But there are some videos in process. Like, there was the big nuclear fusion announcement. We have a video coming up on that. Uh, we're lagging behind everybody else because of this 2-week
We are
break,
too.
but there
We
will
are
be
too.
one of those coming up.
Yep, I'm working on one as well. We're definitely behind, but that's okay. Another fun fact, Matt, and you might not know off the top of your head, when was the last time Matt Ferrell didn't have a video on a Tuesday morning? Has it been like over
It's
2 years?
it's been 2 years. I've
That's
never missed a
insane.
week in like 2 years.
That is Mr. Consistency. You set the standard, my
I,
friend. That is for sure.
it's like I have to take that sign and I have to, like, where it's like no accidents. It's like I have to like erase that
Back
because
to
I have to
zero.
start over because I took this break.
But I know we talk, Matt and I and Alex, the three of us, we talk pretty much daily. We kind of YouTube commiseration, if you will. But one of the things that we always talk about is the you had to fight getting burned out, because you make a video Thursday, you think, okay, for us it's Thursday, you think you're done, you're not really done, because you have to go check the thumbnail and the titles are doing well. Do I have to change the thumbnails and titles? You probably get comments like I do. Hey, I thought this was a new video. It was just the same video. I was like, yeah, sorry, I changed the thumbnails to try to and
Yep.
people think I'm but it's an endless cycle, and you're done with just enough time to start writing and working on next week's video. And
Exactly.
it's a tough thing, and I'm with you. I was hoping to have a little bit of time off, and I haven't really. I took Christmas and Christmas Eve. We had some family get-togethers and stuff, but I'm with you. Maybe I'll take the first week of January off. Yeah,
You,
that'd be
you should.
nice.
You should.
And
My vacation isn't a complete vacation. I am still doing a little bit of work here and there, but it's so hard to disconnect from this completely, because otherwise you're going to fall behind what you're hoping to do. It's very frustrating.
I don't know if you've seen this. The number one occupation that children want to be when they grow up now is YouTuber, right? It used to be firefighter and doctor and
Oh, man.
and now it's YouTuber. Because what you see is Matt has a 12-minute video. It's so lovely, but I mean, if you did the math on like 1 minute of a video that we make, like how many hours it takes in terms of writing, research, video production, review, uploading. Our internet speed sometimes, just uploading a video on YouTube takes hours, possibly
Yeah.
at least an hour. But it could be in the tens to maybe 10 hours per 1 minute when you factor in writing as well. So
Yep.
that's the part people don't see. But yeah, we should definitely do this a little bit more often. Like I mentioned before, guys, I want to do a live show once a week. Let me know if there's a day you would prefer. My goal would be to kind of do a summary of what you've missed this week. We can't cover every story. Matt probably reads 20 articles a week that he can't make a video on just because, well, he's got to pick that one he can make, and that's all the bandwidth that we have as well. So maybe we can just do a quick rundown of all the things that we've covered. I'll have guests when possible. Matt might join once in a while. And yeah, you're going to see a lot more of these mugs in 2023. Somebody mentioned it's almost like Vice Versa's back. Not quite, I know. Maybe we can have a little like quarterly, like 4 videos a year type of thing or something. Just to
Yeah, we could.
that could be fun. Something because
I'm looking forward to seeing what you do for this, because it's like I miss these conversations, whether I'm on the stream or not. It's like it's nice to have these kind of conversations about the weekly kind of cadence of what's happening in the news. It's great.
yeah, I think if we are if we're YouTubers, this is part of what makes it feel special. Is just making media has been a thing for a while, but being able to talk with the people, and I recognize so many of the people in the chat, right? These are our fans and our friends that hang in and join us, and being able to connect with them is so cool. So I will definitely do that, Matthew. I really appreciate you. Have a great rest of your year and a happy new year. Take that. I hope you're really taking time off and not just partially working. And we'll touch base next year.
I'm gonna go watch a movie after this. So yes,
Yeah.
I'm gonna take
Love it.
take a break.
I need to watch Top Gun Maverick. That's what I've been waiting to watch. Have you seen that yet?
That movie's it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah.
You're gonna like it.
I'm looking forward to that.
And
I got
Happy New Year to you too, and take some time for yourself. And I just want to also say thank you to everybody who's watching the stream. It's been a fun year. Can't wait to see what happens in 2023.
Yeah, I'm optimistic. I think you're right about the optimism. It'll carry on. It'll be a good year. All right, wishing all of you guys happy holidays and a happy new year. We'll catch you guys soon. Thank you so much.